Greetings, greetings, greetings. It's Patrick from Eight Questions with Have Cheeto Review. It is a cold Wednesday here in southeastern Michigan, mostly cloudy, 44 degrees outside, but there's a brisk wind going out there. Um, and it is chilly, definitely chilly. Welcome to the show. Um, so, uh, uh, Glad you guys are here tonight. We're going to be talking to uh, film director, actor, screenwriter Michael LiCastri, who just released his debut feature film called The Best Laid Plans, which is a slightly dark comedy that's now out on Tubi. You can see this for free. But we're going to be talking to Michael about his career. He's a prolific writer, um, a good actor. Actually, actually, that really sort of surprised me. When I saw that, I thought, well, he's a film director and a screenwriter, and I was wondering if something had fallen out and he had to take over his one of his leads, because that's what happens sometimes when you uh hey Cruz, how are you? Welcome, welcome. So I thought that maybe that he did that to fill in a hole when maybe one of the actors has fallen out. Now anybody who's done indie film knows that that happens a lot in indie film. A lot of people drop out during the process, and you have to. Sometimes the director has to don the acting hat. Um, but he actually is a really, really good actor, and his Kevin, he plays Kevin in here. He is really fierce. He's just his mind is really fun. Um, and we even got we even got a cameo appearance by a couple of horror icons, which is really cool. I thought that really added a lot of flavor to the punch, so to speak. We had Edwin Neal, who played the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then we had the lovely uh, Linnea Quigley, who starred in, of course, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Return of the Living Dead, um, and a whole host of others. And so they came in for a nice little cameo, which was really cute. Um, hey, Kelly, yeah, Cheetah assembled. That's right. That's right. Cheetah assembles. Gosh, they just reintroduced Cheetah's new costume on Wonder Woman, right? And they made her into a hero. Okay, that's news to me. Um, yeah, so this is a fun show, fun film. I'm gonna tell you right now that I recommend that you guys watch it. It's free on Tubi. In fact, I think me and the Cheetah will probably be doing a film review for Tubi Tuesday. We're gonna do an extra bonus Tubi Tuesday to go along with our regular Tucker Switch that we're doing, but we're gonna do one with Michael's film as well because I really liked it. And it it it's really interesting as how the first half of the film, the film is short. The film's about 75 minutes long, but what was really interesting about it is the fact how the first half of the movie is played for a lot of laughs, and there's a lot of laughs in the movie. But then about halfway through it, there's just a slightly edge to it. It creeps in there, and it's the score that does it. The score puts you slightly on edge because it goes from being a little bit slap happy, slapsticky, you know, um, to just there's just a hint of danger there, a hint of menace, and it really works for this film. And all the actors really gave it a good go. Uh, uh, we got, of course, we got Michael there, and the rest of the cast is all relatively pretty much all unknowns as far as that goes. It has uh, Brian Balance plays Tommy. He's got a picture in his IMDb. That's, to me, when you get a picture on IMDb, that means you probably done some work. Um, when you just have just a blank spot there, you're just probably just starting out, right? And so I can appreciate that. And then you have Elise. He'll have to tell me how to say this, and she plays Brooklyn. And but the rest of the gentlemen and the ladies here, I know nothing about. So this would be a lot of fun, and seeing how they cast this movie. Um, so anyway, I'm really happy about this show. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. This is what I like doing a lot, like going back and talking to the young, to relatively newcomers. Though Michael's not a complete newcomer. Michael has been out here for quite a while, actually. He's done a lot of shorts. He's written 15 different projects. He's dabbled himself in acting in this projects 14 times. So he's no rookie. He knows what he's doing. But of course, this is his first feature film, and of course, that comes with a whole host of different challenges for a filmmaker. So we will definitely be talking to him about that. All right. So, um, yeah, I thought last night's show with Ken Sledge from Sledgehammer Horror. I had a lot of fun talking to Ken. Great guy. Um, just had a blast, had an absolute blast. We talked a little, we got to talk a little baseball. Um, we got to talk a little baseball. We talk a little horror films, fandom, what have you. Had a great time with Ken, and we will be having his wife come back. His wife got called into work, and so we'll be having Ashley come back, and we'll be interviewing her one on one as well. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Um, so tomorrow night on the show, we have rocker and Polish poet, Constant Steele will be here with us. Uh, 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 See, Echo's coming in there. He's earning that. He's earning that Werewolf Island badge so much. Um, yeah, YouTube doesn't allow bestiality, right, Echo? I'm just telling you. Be Okay, that might be a little harsh, but all right. No Sarah Jessica. This is a no Sarah Jessica Parker zone, right? But that's not true. I would be lying to you, Echo. I would be lying to you all if I said that I am completely unaffected by Sarah Jessica Parker, as I have reviewed two of her films. I have reviewed two of her films on my blog. That's right. I reviewed two, and I also reviewed Kristen Davis, who also was one of the girls from Sex and the City. I reviewed one of her films. Um, I personally think Cynthia Nixon is a very good actress, and of course Kim Cattrall. Right, you can't go wrong with Kim Cattrall. Um, so I can't sit here and tell you that I have never reviewed a Sarah Jessica Parker movie, because I have. Um, I think one was like even, and then one was, I actually think I liked it a little bit. Uh, I think I have to go back and look, but I have done Sarah Jessica Parker. I've reviewed two of her films. All right. So so tomorrow night we have Constance Steele will be here with us at 8 o'clock. She is a published poet. She's a vocalist, rock vocalist. She's also done some recordings. She's done some acting. She's just like a Renaissance woman. Very much like Max Wassa was a couple of weeks ago. Does a lot of everything and does it really, really well. So we're going to be talking to her tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And then on the 23rd, I have not heard from the Bat. Quite honestly, I have not heard from the Bat. So as far as I know, we're supposed to be still doing Terrifier, and he's on vacation. I am not going to disturb the man when he's on vacation. I know he pops up in here. He might pop up in here for a couple of minutes, but that's just like a cameo appearance. But as far as I know, him and Vanessa are still on. Are still. That's 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 right. I thought that would catch your attention there, Hobbs. If you guys if you guys missed it, Hobbs has created a new taste sensation, the McHobbs. If you go there and look at his video, of him getting his McDonald's bucket. He created a new taste sensation that seems to be doing really well. That video has already 115 views on it, Hobbs. Um, his the McHobbs is pretty tasty looking, actually, to tell you the truth. Um, So anyway, on the 23rd, as far as I know, I'm gonna probably have to. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm gonna prepare for Terrifier. Hopefully he'll call and tell me, or he'll ping me and tell me that he's back. But that's what we're supposed to be doing on the Midnight Society. Of course, tonight Echo Zero is celebrating his 2 year anniversary, and he's relaunching the Echo side. So he's celebrating his 2 year anniversary on YouTube, and he's also celebrating the relaunch of his own stream called the Echo Side. So that's going to be on after this show here. It's going to be on at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So um, it will be Echo and Nanette, and I don't know who else is going to be there. I don't know. I don't have no idea. Um, Unfortunately, some shenanigans eliminated the third host that they had. Uh, so, um, so you have to tune in to find out what's going on. Uh, Echo says he's also going to give the story about what happened that led me making to my channel 2 years ago. I'm sure it's based around Echo watches some werewolf movies. Yes, Cal, I will be there in the chat for that for sure. Yes, definitely. Um, hey, Bud Files, welcome. Yeah, I will be there for that. Of course, it'll be a lot of fun. Uh, yeah, Hobbs will be there. Cal L Daly will be there. You're gonna be there, right? We'll share it out. We'll maybe Hobbs can go up there and show us how to make a McHobbs. Let's see. Jennifer Tochi Toes will be there as well. Maybe 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 Echo could get her to chew on some chicken feet. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. So that's going on the 23rd with Terrifier, and then on the 24th, it's a special show on a Monday. I have a special Monday show on the 24th. We are welcoming in conservative Christian novelist Ted Morgan will be here with us at 8 o'clock. Ted Morgan is like I said, he's a conservative Christian author. The book that he's written that we'll be talking to him about is called The Restorer, and is an action novel. Is like it's like a Tom Clancy, Vince Flynn, you know, that kind of action right there. A John Stanford, action packed. Should be a lot of fun. It'll be different for sure. Looking forward to it because I've never seen this before. The closest I've ever seen anything right into as far as a Christian novel, action adventure novel. It wasn't a novel at all. It was a comic book. It was a comic book called The Crusaders, and that was when I was just like 14 years old. I have never seen anything since then. I know about the Left Behind books. I've never read the Left Behind books. I know about them, but I never read them. But I did read the first chapter. The first chapter is definitely it's definitely he's definitely world building. It's definitely interesting. Hey Gizmo, greetings, sir. Greetings. Glad you're here. Glad you're here as always. We're talking to yet another filmmaker. We're talking to Michael LiCastri, and he will be here shortly. Let's see, make sure I can pop that up. Uh, oh, hold on 1 second, fellas. Oh, yep. Okay. Yep. I see him. All right. Yep. All right. So let's put our hands together. We're going to bring him up right now. It's our honored guest tonight. It's filmmaker, screenwriter, and actor Michael LiCastri. Let's get it done. All right.
Hey,
Okay. I don't know about the rest of anybody else, but all I know is I'm in some mood for some motherfucking pancakes.
how you doing,
Uh,
Patrick?
Good. How are you, Michael?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad we're finally getting to do this. I think it was like 2019 or something when we had first talked about doing this, and then when I heard from you recently, I was like, "Huh, pleasant surprise!" like,
Yes, before when you and I met doing this, I was going to do a written interview for the blog, and then I think the schedules didn't match up, and so all of a sudden it's like, yeah, okay, let's go, let's because I was looking through my messages, and I'm going like, oh, I remember Michael, and so I said let's go talk to him. So and then you said that you had your film as out on Tubi, so
yeah, it's in a bunch of places now.
huh?
I said it's in a couple of places now. That's one of them.
Yeah, I saw that's where I saw it. I saw it at Tubi. Is it on Amazon Prime as well?
It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. It's on Distro TV, Plex, and I think one or two other places. So yeah, so we're on a couple of platforms, but Amazon and Tubi are the big ones.
Um, yeah, yeah, your film is a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
Uh,
It's
I
certainly what we're going for.
I really was surprised by it. What I really was surprised by it was how you sort of shifted the tone of the movie about halfway through. Before it was just a bunch of three guys, and they're just like coming up with some wild ass schemes, and then all of a sudden halfway through the movie, and I don't know if it was by design, which I'm sure it was, but your score of the movie changed a little bit,
The
and the
score,
tone of the movie did too.
I mean, the score definitely changed because of the situation they were in. I'm hoping it wasn't a radical tonal shift. I'm hoping that people were still laughing. There are a lot of, I think, really funny moments in that third act still. But I also think that with the story we were telling, like, that was the direction it had to go in. Like, all this time, we're building to something. And it's like these guys were in a position where it was either put up or shut up. And ultimately, like, that was where they needed to be. It didn't make sense to keep having them talking about doing things, and then never having them do anything. It's that old Chekhov's gun thing. Like, if you see a gun in Act One, by the end of the show, somebody's got to fire it. And so ultimately, all this talk about them being like, we have to get the money, we have to get the money. Like, we have to actually see them do something that moves them towards that goal. And so ultimately, like, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to kind of see where they ended up, because their hand was very much forced. I feel like, and we set that up pretty early on that these guys are kind of in a tight spot. But hopefully, it wasn't a situation where you got to the third act and you were like, oh, this got like really weird or dark. Like I said, there's a lot of still very silly moments in there.
It definitely
Um,
were, but
so,
it did get a little edgy. It did get edgy, and I like that.
oh, I mean that's good. Like, it's weird. I never, like, as a comedian, I always think it's weird. I never set out to be edgy, and I have kind of a distrust of anybody who audit, like, that's how they describe themselves. When you're like, oh, what do you do? What's your art like? Um, I'm just, at the end of the day, somebody who's trying to tell stories and trying to get people to laugh and think. And so whatever tools are at my disposal is what I will use. And if somebody wants to say it's edgy after the fact, that's cool. I'm fine with that. I certainly don't take it as an insult, but like, I, you
Oh
know,
no,
it's always really funny to me how there are some people that just rush kind of headfirst into that. And, I've never set out to do that. I make the things I make, and then however people feel about them afterwards, um, is how they feel, and they're entitled to that.
One question I was wondering, did you always see yourself in the role of Kevin, or did you have to replace anybody?
Oh no, I wrote that for me. I
Okay.
wrote that for me. So I've been, and I heard you talking about this in the pre-show, and I have been around for a while. So thank you for pointing that out. Because sometimes when I've done these with people, they're like, "Oh, your movie was fun, but like we don't know anything else about you," and I have to send them all this information, and I'm like, "I've been doing this for like 20 something years." So when I'm writing and directing and producing things, I'm almost always in them. Of the feature that I've made and now the 11 shorts that I've made, there was only one time where I didn't act in it. So I almost always write a part for myself. Um,
So, so
if
you got experience doing that too. I mean, that's the thing. You had 11 shorts underneath your belt, and that's one of the things too. A lot of first-time film directors, that want to act, or screenwrite, and they're doing their first feature. Sometimes they overload the plate, and it can spin out
Absolutely.
it can spin out of control real easy. And
Yeah,
but I think for you, since you've had the experiences as acting on your projects, it wasn't that much of a challenge. It was a longer shoot, a more of a longer story, but you already know what to do.
yeah. I mean, so for me, the reason I was able to make it work was the fact that like I started acting as a little kid. I started acting when I was 8. I'm in my 30s now. So like I've been acting for a really long time, and I started in the theater. And I also like act, write, and direct produce for theater as well. Like literally just a couple months ago, I just had a play that I wrote, directed, produced, and then co-starred in, and we had a sold out run. We were a part of the Tampa Bay Theater Festival this year, and we sold out the Studio Theater in Ybor and had like a great run. But like, I started in the theater, and I started as an actor in the theater. So like by the time I started taking an interest in directing or writing, um, I already kind of felt comfortable with the idea of acting in my own work because I brought that experience with me already. The other thing is like as a comedian, you're always going to be performing your own material, and you're always going to be the best advocate for your own material. So ultimately, like that was always Kevin was always going to be me. That was the one thing, and it was funny because I would send the sides out to actors, and they would be like, "Oh, is the part of Kevin open? Like it's really well written and it's really funny." And I'm like, "No, it's not. Sorry." I didn't even tell them that I had written it for myself, but no, I had no intentions of letting somebody else do that. Um,
Now,
partially,
let me ask you a question.
sure.
What would happen if you were, let's just say that you did write that for yourself? 'Cause sometimes that does happen. But let's just say someone walked up in casting and auditioned and just knocked your socks off, and you looked at it and go like, that guy would be a better Kevin than me. Would you go ahead and give them the role of Kevin, or would you just stick to your guns and keep you doing it?
I would stick to my guns if only because this was my first feature, and I needed to prove to myself and to people in the industry out in LA and New York that I could do all of these things at the same time. Um, I set myself a challenge, and I largely would like to think I succeeded. And so it was really important to me that the original vision that I had for the film is what would end up getting made. And ultimately, that is what happened. The film is very much, you know, almost word for word my script. So very much my original vision was what we ended up getting, but that was because I produced it. Like I paid for it. The movie exists because I funded it. So ultimately, if you're the one cutting the checks and you're the one that wrote it, I think that kind of dedication to your original vision is really important. You should not be compromising if it's yours. If you worked that hard to get it up in the first place,
Sure.
and I did. Oh my god.
Yeah, there is that other there. Again, is there is I can understand it. I can understand, the passion there to saying, well, like, for this, my first feature, yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah,
Uh, the next time this happens and there is somebody goes through auditions and they are better than me, okay, yeah, I'll cross that bridge when I cross it. But for this movie, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sail that ship. And I
yeah.
and I
I needed to be able to demonstrate that. One of the things that I hope people come away with um, after the movie's over and they're done watching it is like, man, that guy did a lot. Like he executed a lot of things at the same time. Um, and that was 10 short films before that took me to get to that point. So for me it was very much like a master's thesis. Like, here is what I learned along the way. Now I'm showing you my work. Now I'm showing you all these things I learned.
and you
So
did a really nice job with it. I mean, I really was impressed. I mean, it
well,
really
thank
was
you. No,
well,
sincerely.
it really was a really well done film, and you definitely could tell the earnestness behind, especially your character.
Yeah,
You're definitely the live wire in the movie. I mean, I believed you and everything you said. Like Tommy says, now I believe because
yeah,
you have something to lose. And you know what? I think he was actually describing you personally with that line. You
yeah.
know,
It very much, the script was very much born of um, some real life frustrations. My family didn't lose their house or anything, thank God. But like, I graduated from UCF with like a film degree, and I graduated in 2011, and that was like the peak of the recession. Some people don't remember, but like that was a really bad time to be going into the job market. It was for everyone. It was especially bad if you had a film degree in Florida. And so, that the things that my character says about Wall Street and corporate greed are all things that I very sincerely feel. And it's funny because I've had the good fortune of, and this happened with the play that I wrote too, though it's about a different issue. Um, but writing comedy that ages well is a tricky thing to pull off. And you don't ever set out to do it. You just do it and you hope that it ages well. But when I was thinking about what I wanted my first feature to be, I've probably written like 20 of them at this point. And the reason I picked this one was partially because we could afford it, but also because the story somehow became more relevant. I wrote the script in 2012, I think, and the movie eventually got made in 2017 and came out early 2019. And the issues that these characters are dealing with are still very fundamental and very real. And I think that in some ways they might be more relevant now,
yeah,
to college kids now than they were, when I wrote the thing. So, there is something to be said about some struggles remain kind of constant, and the issues that Kevin and his friends are dealing with they're very real. Like, we tackle them in a comedic way, I think, but the underlying notion of what they're struggling with is very real.
yeah.
So, and I think that's why people have responded to the film the way that they have, is because that sincerity is very present and they feel that as they're watching it.
I felt like Kevin. I think Kevin, even though he studied to be, it was sort of an oxymoron in a sense that he studied to become a lawyer in the movie, yet you had a criminal mind. You were always looking for the shady side, and I thought that was a really comedic twist because it's like, okay, he's a lawyer, but at the same time he's like, tomorrow I'm a pimp. It's just
Yeah,
like,
but I think there were a lot of people who end up in law and kind of have minds like that. I think it's the same thing with cops. To an extent, Michael Mann made an amazing cop movie about that. Heat really is, the whole thesis statement of Heat is that cops and criminals have a very thin line separating them. And I don't think it's really all that different with lawyers either. And I think a lot of people would agree with me. And if you really want proof of that, one of the most popular lawyer shows for the last better part of a decade was about a heavily criminal lawyer. right? Better Call Saul was a huge hit,
Right,
and,
right.
and kind of touched on that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely true that he is kind of thinking of the get rich quick schemes. He's a hustler by nature, but he's ultimately not a bad person. He just kind of gets put in a tight spot and doesn't really know what to do with it, and he keeps seeing his options fall away one by one. And so, it's like, what do you do when you're backed into that corner? So, you know,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to stay. It's hard, when you're right. It's not as easy. I mean, you try to do the right thing. You try to hold on to your moral center, but sometimes people do. Sometimes people do get pushed, into doing things they don't want to do because they're that desperate.
yeah, no, and that's ultimately what I mean. It's very much still a comedy. I hope people aren't watching this and being like, "Oh, this sounds really dour." It's not. There's a lot of dick jokes, I promise. But
Yeah.
but the I like when people are able to make comedies about kind of heavy things that have a little weight behind them. Because you get to laugh, but you also kind of get to process some things that are troubling at the same time. And so, if we're able to give people a little, I'll use a theater word here and say catharsis, then I'm happy to provide that.
Um. So you're based in Florida then. So
I am.
how before we go back to your roots, but how's the industry there now? I mean, are you? I mean, you're not that far away from Georgia, and
No, no, I'm not.
um, so is Florida doing well as far as film industry goes? Are you sort of keeping your? Are you going to stay in Florida maybe, or are you thinking about moving out to Georgia? And how did you? How was this movie received for you? I mean, as far as behind the scenes, I mean, did anybody come up to you and talk to you about doing another project or producing something with you in the future?
Oh, I mean, yeah, there are definitely cast members who would work with me again, and the guy who shot the movie, Scott Sullivan, and I at some point will work together again in the future. Um, he's just been really really busy, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, everybody had a really good time working on it. For the most part, we all had a really pleasant experience. I mean, it was challenging. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately, I don't think anybody really walked away being like, "Oh, I would never do that again." And it's funny you asked me this question because literally just yesterday I got an email from an actor that I had worked with on one of my shorts, who I hadn't spoken to in years. A wonderful guy, but like I had spoken to him in years, and he was like, "Hey man, how are you doing? Like, just wanted to let you know that like if you ever wanted to work together again, I had a really great time." So I've been lucky in that my reputation in the area that I'm in is really strong. And so normally people are willing to work with me because they know, oh, like you can, A, Michael's got stuff that you can see and find it pretty easily. But B, I'm pretty easy to work with for the most part. As long as you're professional and respectful, I don't give anyone a hard time. Like I'm very much I give you the energy that you give me. So if you come in and you're fun and you're relaxed and you're ready to go, then we don't have any problems. But yeah, the cast and crew when they saw the finished project, they were happy with it for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned before on the pre-show. I mentioned that you managed to get a couple of horror icons in your movie, and let's talk a little bit about that. Um, how did you get Edward O'Neill and Linnea in there?
So what ended up happening was a really good friend of mine that I went to high school with, Vanessa. She had done. She no longer lives in Florida, but she had done a lot of like makeup on local productions here, and she knew a casting director named Marty Marrero, who's one of my favorite people and a fantastic casting director, who's located down in South Florida. And she was like, "I'm going to connect you two." And so she had put me in touch with him, and I had basically sent him the script. He loved it. He was like, "I want to be a part." And Marty played the homeless guy that Ed tells to leave. So Marty has a small cameo in the film as well. But ultimately, I had pitched it to him, and I was like, "Look, from a production standpoint, the only way that I can justify putting money into this as a producer, the only way we're going to get a distribution deal is if we have some sort of names involved." And we went through a really long list of people before we, and I'm super happy with Ed and Linnea. They did a great job. But we went through a lot of names before we ended up with those two. And Linnea's part was not originally in the film. Linnea's part was not originally in the film, and Ed's part was written for a younger actor. Ed's part was more originally of just a generic drug dealer type. Um, what happened was Marty was like, I can get you Linnea. And I was like, well, that's fine, but we need someone to fill out the male drug dealer role. And Ed and Linnea are really good friends. So because Linnea came on, Ed was willing to come on because they had been wanting to work together for a really long time. And what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, now I have two people and I need to retool the drug dealer part. And I turned them into an elderly couple that's only selling drugs because their social security isn't enough. Because I was like, that's way funnier than what I originally had. Like the pop culture references didn't change. That dialogue stayed the same. But now all of a sudden they had a backstory. And I was like, this is so much more fun now that I was able to do that for them. So that's how they got involved. Literally just an introduction via a friend to a casting director. And, both of them read the script and they loved it and they wanted to be a part.
Yeah, that was a nice snag. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like the cool thing about it for them, I'm sure they appreciated it too, was it wasn't a damn horror film. It was like the comedy,
Yeah. And they were really
something
excited
new that
about
they could, something new that they could do.
Yeah. And they definitely said as much on set. So,
Um, let's see, our friend Nanette is saying hello to you. Thank you.
oh,
Yeah, I saw that, and then and you're right. I mean, that is a bane of that is a bane of independent filmmakers, and it's one of those. It's a rock and a hard place, isn't it? I
we got
personally,
very lucky. We did.
it's your long list of actors that you looked at. Was Eric Roberts one of them?
No. And I I love Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts is great. But no, he wasn't one of the people we were looking at for that part.
That guy's a workaholic. Um, when I saw Linnea and Edwin, I was thinking about that, and when I saw the cover, of the Tubi, where I was looking for a cover for I could put this on here, I noticed on the, I guess it would be the DVD cover, it had Edwin and Linnea. You're right, they have the two names on there,
Yep.
and do you find it frustrating though? I mean, you know how the game is played, but do you find it really frustrating to know that you have to have something like that in order to sell the film, where it should be the story that sells the film?
It is incredibly frustrating. And it holds a lot of people back from making movies who would otherwise be making movies, even for small budgets. Because the problem was, like I was just saying, if we didn't get them, I wouldn't have been able to make the film. I wouldn't have. Because even if I had made it, the most we could have done with it was put it on YouTube. And for me, it was really important that we got a distribution deal out of this. I needed that. I needed it. And because I knew it would go on to open up some doors, and it has. There are friends now in the industry that I have as a result of this movie, because they watched it and not only did they like it, but they were like, you managed to get it distributed. And most films don't get distributed. There are so many movies that people don't know about and you just never get to see them. And it
No.
doesn't mean they're bad or good. It just means that for whatever reason they weren't able to get a distribution deal. And the producers, for reasons that I completely understand, said, we're not putting this up on YouTube for free. Sorry, like it's not worth it for us. So yes, it's incredibly frustrating. It's what's equally as frustrating is seeing people that have social media followings but have no discernible talents, um, getting cast in films.
Yeah. Yep.
I just saw that one very prominent TikTok personality, and I'm not going to name them because that's who it is isn't the point. The point is she has no skills as an actor. She's never acted before, and now they are putting her as the lead in a movie, and they want it to be an eight-part series. They want this girl to star in 8 movies, and she's never starred in one. Like,
Yeah,
and it's because she has a lot of TikTok followers,
yeah.
and like that's insane to me. Like,
Well,
you know,
it saves the studio, hundreds of thousands of dollars in publicity.
oh, it's not hundreds of thousands, it's millions.
Yeah.
It's up to millions now. Yeah. Oh no, I know
Um,
exactly what it is.
See, we got a couple of questions coming our way. See, Nanette is asking a question for you.
Sure.
Uh, what are some of the movies that got you into wanting to be a filmmaker?
Okay, great question. I love it. Um, a lot. I know you're not supposed to say his name in a positive way anymore because he's not a great person and it's not. But I love Woody Allen movies. Woody Allen's a not a great dude, but an amazing joke writer. For me, though, ultimately, what really kind of convinced I always wanted to do this. What convinced me that I could do it was seeing Kevin Smith's Clerks. Um, that movie changed my entire life. It was such a radical film. It has nothing to do with the technique, but like it was funny. It was shot in black and white, had no names in it. And the guy who made it went from working at a convenience store to running a multimedia empire. And it was just such a radical act of like, you can do this one thing and improve your lot. And it is possibly the single most sincere expression of whatever you want to call the American dream that I've ever seen in the film world. It was insane. This guy went from working at the store to hanging out with Ben Affleck, making movies with Ben Affleck. It was mind blowing to see somebody that looked like me and talked like me and my friends. Um, a guy who was not Brad Pitt by any sense of the word. Was out here just absolutely killing it. So I mean, there have been a lot of films, deconstructing Harry, as far as Woody Allen goes. Love and Death and Sleeper are all great. But if I have to pick one, and all of Kevin Smith stuff I love, but particularly Clerks. Clerks will always hold a special place in my heart as the movie that convinced me, okay, I could do this. I'm skilled enough to do this.
I think I'll blow your mind when I say this, because I just watched Back to the Well, this documentary about the making of Clerks 2.
Mhm.
I got to tell you, Michael, to me, honestly, I've seen a lot of Kevin Smith's movies, but I got to tell you, I think he's better as a documentary filmmaker than he is a feature filmmaker.
A narrative.
He's made Dogma. I love Dogma. Dogma's the bomb.
Dogma's amazing. Very funny movie.
But he had that one chance to do Hollywood with 16 Blocks or Cop Out, I think it was, and then it didn't work for him. And I just think that he was. I don't know if he ever truly got the mainstream push that he wanted. Now he's gone. He's always goes back to what he knows. He's not really. It's almost like he got his hand burned so bad by the Cop Out, he's afraid to take risk anymore. That got him there in the first place. Um,
It's so. Here's what I'll say about Cop Out. Cop Out's kind of a weird entry in his overall filmography, chronology, whatever you want to call it, because it's the only time he's ever directed a script that he didn't write.
mhm.
And I thought the direction of that movie was fine. I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was as funny as his normal stuff. And that's because he didn't write it. Other people wrote it. Um, I think he's a perfectly competent director, but I do think he does best when he directs his own writing.
Yeah,
I think that not that he's obvious because he's done TV and other stuff, so he's directed other people's scripts before. But I think that he directs in a certain kind of way, and if the script isn't written to that, I think that's where he runs into trouble. Also, it's funny you say that because before Clerks 3, the last couple things he had done, Tusk and oh god, Yoga Hosers, was definitely him taking some risks. He got weird with those ones, and with Red State too. So, and he's got that horror movie, Kilroy Was Here, which like nobody has gotten to see, but it does exist and also looks to be pretty weird. So, like, he's still out there doing, some weird stuff and taking some risks. Just that stuff isn't as well publicized, I would say.
Yeah, I just find his I just find that every time he comes on there, he's going back to what he knows. He has he has a comfort zone, and he rarely ever comes out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's safe to say that Red State probably is the last true thing that he's done that's really pushed it. Tusk was not I didn't think Tusk was a challenge. That story's been done before. There wasn't anything new that we haven't seen. Like Clerks, or Dogma. I mean, we haven't, and nobody's ever seen anything like Dogma before.
No, no.
Now I hear Clerks 3 is absolutely actually supposed to be flat out amazing.
I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to actually see it this Saturday. And if there's any justice in the universe, I'll get a little bit lucky because funny enough, I managed to track down an email of somebody who works with them, and I was like, I'd like to give Kevin a gift. What would be the best way to do this? And they gave me the name of the person. So I'm going to be giving them a DVD of Best Laid Plans, and a little business card and whatnot. If there's any kind of luck in the universe, maybe he'll actually watch it, and I'll hear back. I don't know, but
I would think to give I think you would have that was actually one of my other questions too, and I'm glad you'd answered it right there. I was actually going to ask you, because you mentioned, distributorship. I was going to ask you, did you get distributorship? Did you get your movie on DVD and Blu-ray? And it's on.
Not. So we do have a distributor. That distributor doesn't put things out on DVD. So the movie does not have a physical release, unfortunately. At some point, I hope that will change. Hopefully, my career will advance within the next couple of years to a point where I can push for that, and it would make fiscal sense. That distributor basically doesn't put anything out on DVD. They don't engage in the physical media market at all. So
Yeah.
I someday it will eventually get there. I just don't know what path we will take, but it will get there.
Isn't that something?
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating. I feel sorry. I feel sorry for a lot of filmmakers. Let me go up there and catch up with Gizmo. Gizmo is a filmmaker based out of Norway, and he's got a lot of films underneath his belt. And he comes by and shows support. And he's mentioning sales points for films with actors or different things is different. It's different. I actually like. Let's see. It is the only safe thing for the viewers to know there is any quality in a film. When you don't know the director, the production, or anything, the actor can be a safe draw. Right? Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. You gotta. The only problem I have with that, and a lot of film fans, a lot of cinephiles will go with me on this, especially in the horror community, is unfortunately it's a catch-22. You got to get those actors to come in for your name recognition. At the same time, their names are featured on the box. But if you go ahead and spend that $10, $12, $13 on the movie, and then you get one scene, then they don't feel like they feel like they got ripped off. They don't feel like, wow, that's it. That's all they're in this film for. And so they get a little burned out, a little jaded. And
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time, especially with horror movies. Because it works.
Yeah, to extent. To extent, there is a backlash, though. I will say that, Michael. There is a backlash that when you do that and you don't deliver, a lot of times people they'll crap on the film, they'll bury it, they won't, and they'll see who's made the movie, and they won't support that person because they look at it and go like, wow, this guy's gonna get X, ABC cast, because they don't understand the process. They don't understand,
Yeah.
like, hey, I gotta put these people in here, but at the same time, it's like how you rewrote a scene for them. Um, sometimes when you sit there and and go like, wow, could you have written a little longer scene or another scene with them? Could Kevin and Lois have interacted? That sort of thing. We want to see. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to see. I wanted to see you guys interact with those two. But
Well,
I understand that. It isn't always possible.
no, and I'll tell you, we only had Anne and Linnea for a day.
Yeah.
We were on set for a day. That was what we could afford. So,
Yeah.
and so, and, I understand why people get mad, but the flip side of that coin is, let's take somebody like Bob Englund, for example, who's Freddy Krueger. Last I heard, and it could have increased since then, he was getting 25 grand per day. That's not for the whole film. That's per day. Tony Todd, the Candyman, is
Yeah.
getting 10K per day. So you have to think about, in terms of the production, how much of that is going to one guy. And if the movie only has 250,000, see what I mean? It adds up quickly. So,
It does.
I understand the backlash, but people have to be careful with that because in some ways that's the only way to sell the movie.
Yeah.
And the industry is going through a really weird shift right now. It is, particularly with comedies. This is a really weird time to be doing anything comedic. Um,
Comedy. Comedy is almost gone.
yeah, no, it's very frustrating for me because the stuff like Plants is the kind of stuff I want to make. Um, so yeah, it's a particularly frustrating thing. So yeah, I mean, as a producer, you do whatever you feel like you have to get people to pay attention. There's so many movies now, so anything that you can do to cut through the noise, you're going to do. And if you want even a recent example of this, look at the promotion for "Don't Worry, Darling." Like
Oh, which
Olivia
one?
Wilde and for the Olivia Wilde movie, "Don't Worry, Darling." They're,
Oh,
they're
right, right, right.
the team just milked it. They milked all of this PR backstage drama because they
Yeah,
were like, well, it's free publicity. People won't stop writing about us. We might as well run with it. And they
yeah,
ran and ran and ran till their legs got tired. Like
yeah.
that's what
Sylvester Stallone did the same thing with his wife. They concocted that phony divorce thing, but they had already made a commitment to do a reality show together. And it's just all it was is just to bring publicity to it. And then
happened.
they were going to get a divorce and this and that, and also then they reconcile. Yeah, just in time for the premiere of their new show. So yeah, I mean, there's some really shady shit that goes
I
on.
didn't know that. I
Yeah,
didn't know any of that. Sylvester Stallone is doing a reality show?
yeah,
Oh, God.
yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's an Academy
Talk about
Award
comedy.
He's an Academy Award winner, man. Wow. Or
Yep.
nominee, I think, not winner.
Yeah, yeah, that's what he's doing. Let's see. Let me see, read off real quick. Hey, Charles Cochran in the house. I'm going to catch up with Gizmo said. Um, and let's see. Yeah, they're talking about. Oh, no problem, Julie. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Always glad. Um, see, I have to go up here. This. It got away from me. It happens. It's just any quality in film when you don't know the director. Yep, yep. We call that blind buying when we buy movies like that. We tune on Tubi or something like that. We don't know anything about anyone, and we just blind buy it. Let's see. Different with Kevin Smith and you is the time period. His movie was released back in '94. He could sell the film and become rich from VHS. Yeah, yeah, you can make money when off your units sold.
The
Not
DVD
hard,
market is
you can't
gone.
really do that now.
No,
Now you have to hope that people click on Tubi or Amazon Prime, and you have to hope that they stay with the movie.
that's right.
So the longer they watch, the more you make. I mean, if someone turns
Correct.
in and the pressure doing that, it's got to be tremendous because before it'd be like, okay, I'm making my movie, I'm putting it on the shelf. If people buy it, they buy it. They're gonna watch it when they can. They're gonna watch it. But with streaming services, it's a really hard crux. It's like, because there's, like you said, there's so much out there that people can sit there and watch it for 10 minutes, get bored because we have such much more shorter attention spans, and then they move on to something else. And then all of a sudden, then you got 10 minutes of your movie watch, but you're not really making anything for it. Um, so
That is all true.
it's brutal. Nanette says she loves Dogma. Yes, Dogma. It's an awesome movie.
It is.
Let's see. Charles says crapping on a movie is a weird kink. Uh, yeah, I literally and figuratively, right? Let's see. And with sales marks as the hardest and brutal movie ever from Norway, we had a person pass out during screening in Netherlands, and that hit the cover. So, did that help your movie or did it hurt it, Gizmo? I would think that anytime you have someone pass out at your movie, it's a bonus because then you write about it. So everything was on the cover, and the cover was nothing like the movie. Yeah, that happens all the time. That happens all the time.
You used to be able
Cover,
to sell a movie off of just the box art. You could. Can't do
yeah.
that anymore. When Blockbuster went, that went with it. But
Um, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of movies. There's a lot of, especially in the horror movies, they'll have all these super psyched out covers, and they don't even come close to the movie. But you know what? You got to sell it. You really do. So it really well for sales. Let's see. Yeah. Uh, yeah, he says, let's see, it went really well for the sales. Audience was mad, but I gave them the middle finger, and I still do. I don't care. I made my film, and to make it, I had to use what I get. So yeah, what he's saying is like, yeah, people can be burnt out a little bit. They can be a little frosty about seeing Linnea and Edwin on there for a couple of minutes. But the fact of the matter is that that's all you had. It's not like you had that $250,000 that you could go out there and spend the money on talent. You
nope.
got it for one day and what have you. Now we do know of a filmmaker. I know of a filmmaker that had that situation happen, and I don't. Let me come up to you. Let me ask you if this is something that you consider in the future, in your second feature film. Um, what if you had that situation next time and you actually got a name actor? Could you and would you, if you had the time, would you come out there, break down the scene and rewrite them to have a couple more scenes into the movie, so at least you could have them for like there's a little bit of a more of a meatier part for them, because you really, like you said, you're really looking for all the advantages you can get.
If I knew I had the extra time, I'd write it for them beforehand.
Yeah.
Is what I would do. To give you some background, just so that you understand what we were working with, the movie you watched was made for $12,000. That is a $12,000 movie. That is like the budget for like the bagel table on a Marvel movie. Like it was for a feature that's nothing. So if people want to get mad at that, well then write me a check to make another one where I can have them come back for more time next time.
Sure.
We had such an insanely small budget. We really did. And
And you know what? You put every penny on the screen too, Michael.
yep, we
I mean,
did.
that's obviously, you could obviously see that. I mean, you put everything on the screen. I mean, there
Yeah,
was no holding back. What you had is what you put on the screen. A lot of filmmakers, I think they hold back a little bit. Like, well, I got 12,000, but I'm gonna put 9,000 and hold 3,000 just in case. And you know what? And it looks like it. It
yeah.
looks like. I'd rather see someone throw every penny that they have, go out like that than to hold back. And
I think
'cause so, where did you come up with the idea for the film of the best laid plans?
so. I kind of touched on this before, but when I graduated, it was taking me some time to find work. Those first couple months coming back from college were kind of challenging, and so I put that into a script, and then I left Florida for a little bit, and I moved to New York because I felt like I had hit a wall here, and I had dinner with a family friend of ours up there, and he works as a line producer, and I was like, Well, before I tell this, am I allowed to swear on the show?
Yeah.
Oh,
Didn't you
okay.
hear me? Didn't you hear me introduce the show?
No, well, parts of it, so I didn't hear the whole thing. Okay, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. So I had dinner with him, and I was like, "How much would it cost me to make a feature up here?" And he was like, "If I called in every favor," and I said, "Every favor," and he said $100,000, and I slammed my hand down on the table and said, and I quote, "Fuck that! I'm going back to Florida because I can make my movie there for 10 grand." And that was what I did. The production was 10 grand, and the other two went to post. Like, so and it was weird. It was weird to be coming back to the place that I left, which has decidedly less industry opportunities. But it was easier for me to make the thing here. And like I said, the film has now opened some doors for me. There are now producers in LA who are kind of interested in what I've been doing because they were like, "Oh, you made an entire thing with that little? Like, I wonder what you could do, with something a little bit bigger."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, it's been fairly effective as a calling card for sure.
Well, that was in the short films that you've done it too. Those, because as people who watch this show quite a bit, they know how I feel about short films. I think short films are a director's best friend. So because it prepares you. I don't really. It makes me nervous to watch a first time director that's all they're doing. This is their first thing that they've done. They're coming out, they're shooting out, and they're a writer, they're a screenwriter. Most of the time, they're a screenwriter, they're a writer, director, and they're coming out their first anything. No shorts, no nothing. This is I'm
And
gonna
it's a
make a I'm gonna
feature.
make a feature
Oh,
film.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
a very hard thing to do, and I wouldn't recommend it to
and
anyone.
most people don't. Then most people actually do not make it. Some do. A couple of well-known directors I know have done that. Liam Gavin and Ashton Clark, but but they still had a little bit behind them. They still had shorts behind them too, so they were ready for it. And so were you. And you could tell by the steadiness of your story and the pacing of it. You definitely know what you were doing. It was a very impressive film. And the two gentlemen that you worked with, your cohorts on that, um, were they friends or were they cast? Because they were really good too.
So, the guy who played Alan is an actor named David. David and I were not friends. That was the first time we worked together. The guy who plays John is a really good friend of mine named Keith Surplus, who is a local actor out here in Tampa. We worked together a bunch of times. He's in several of my shorts. And he is my friend in real life. So that's where the actual friendship was. The guy who played the pimp is also, his name is Ed Cologne. I think he is effectively retired from show business now, but I know him from doing stand up in Orlando. We did some stand up shows together. So that's how I know him. Those two people were friends of mine beforehand. Everybody else was new to me.
Why comedy, Michael? Why go? Comedy it's been dying on the vine for the last 3, 4, or 5 years. So why venture into that? Why venture into the realm? If your next movie, would you do? Are you going to try to do more comedy? Are you going to try to do more like maybe comedy dramas?
Ultimately, the goal is to keep doing more comedy. The next project that I would like to do, if it goes according to plan, it won't be a narrative. It will be, well, I'm working on a comedic short that should be coming out soon. But the next feature will hopefully be a documentary. It will be a comedy, but it will be a documentary with a very, very famous person. Um, I don't want to say more than that now
No.
because we're still kind of getting things set up. But hopefully that will happen uh, sometime in the near future. And if we can get that off the ground, it'll be really great. I'm talking to my producer friend in LA, and we're trying to figure out a way to make that project happen. Because if it did, uh, not only would it be a really fun doc and it would be funny, but we could sell it really easily because of who the person is.
Right.
So, but that is all I can say about that for now. But yeah, but the next thing I do will be a short. and it will be a comedy. So
Um, so how did I mentioned this before? But when you said you were working in theater, so you cut your teeth on your career in theater. How did you get involved in theater?
I've always wanted to be in this business. I didn't start out doing comedy, but I've always wanted to be in this business. And I did my first play when I was 8, and I just kept trying out for shows. Like that was pretty much it. And then I went to film school at UCF. Made a lot of short films there. I worked for National Public Radio during my time there as an on-air personality. I was one of the film review guys. My roommate and I had a radio show there. Had a lot of fun doing that. Um, I did stand up in Tampa before I did it in Orlando, but I did it several times in Orlando as well. I spent from probably like 8 to 14, 15 kind of vacillating. And then once I saw Clerks and I saw Kevin Smith and I found out about Kevin Smith, I was like, that was it for me. I knew I wanted to do comedy because I saw someone who reminded me of me, and it was approachable and it was relatable. And I'd always had a pretty good sense of humor, and I was like, this makes sense to me. Like I know what I look like, I know what I sound like. My talents lend themselves naturally to comedy. I know who I am and what I'm good at. So I know what my lane is, and that's why. you
Did,
know,
did, did
um,
you did you enjoy doing stand up?
I love doing stand up, but it is of all the things that I do, probably the most challenging. And that's what makes it fun, but it's definitely the most difficult because it is just you, and crowds are weird. So, but if anybody wants to check out some of that, you can go to my YouTube channel at 1202 Productions, or if you track down the 1202 Productions website, I do have an album out. It's called ADD Hero, and it's a collection of sets I've done over the years. It's probably about half an hour. I think we're selling it for like $10 on Bandcamp, so feel free to check that out. It's a fun little album.
Do you still do that now to help keep does doing stand up, because you have to write your routines. So does writing stand up, does that help you with your screenwriting?
Absolutely. I'm always writing jokes. I'm always writing jokes. I have a little thing on my phone that if I come up with an idea, I type it down so I don't forget it. Yeah, I'm always writing jokes. So yes.
Why do you think comedy's dying? At least in Hollywood's eyes. I mean,
Um,
stand up seem to be doing pretty well,
End up
but
doing great for feature films. It's not. Um, the reason for this is it's part of a larger issue. One, I think, is the cultural climate we're in. And there's a lot you could say about that politically, but it's certainly not helpful, I will say, to comedians to be in the situation we are in now. If you really want to look into that further, I would encourage everyone to Google Jamie Foxx's All Star Weekend and look into that film and the fact that it hasn't come out yet and the reasons for that, because it's really disappointing. But I think there's a larger economic issue in the fact that, and I'll give you a more recent example. That movie Bros came out, and it didn't make a lot of money. And the gentleman who co-wrote the film and starred in it kind of said some things that essentially were to the effect of, we're part of a minority community, and people didn't want to come out and support this minority community, and that's why the movie wasn't doing well. And I could not tell you how many sort of responses I saw in various places online to people that said it had nothing to do with that. What it had to do with the fact is it's a comedy, and movies are $12, $13 for a ticket. And the reasoning for them as an audience member is, if we're going to pay that much for a ticket, we either want to see a horror movie or an action movie. Like, if we're going to watch a comedy, we can watch it at home. There's no reason to go to the theater, which is
do
heartbreaking
you,
for
do you
people.
think that was really the case, though, Michael, or you think there was? I think it was probably America just is not ready. It's just not ready for a mainstream gay movie.
I mean, I think that's a small part of it. I do think it has more to do with the economics of comedy than the fact that it's a gay rom com. I do. I really think it has more to do with the fact. Because did you know Julia Roberts and George Clooney have a new one coming out?
Yeah, new comedy coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you do, but most people don't. And it's probably not going to do very well fiscally. And it's a romantic comedy starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts. Should be like shooting fish in a barrel, but it's not going to make a lot of money. Most people don't even know that it exists. So it is more than just people not being ready for a mainstream gay thing. It's people not wanting to spend that amount of money on a ticket unless they're being scared or it's a big budget Marvel movie. They don't feel like comedy and the ticket prices they're paying are justified. They don't feel like they're getting their money's worth. Which for me as an audience member is heartbreaking because one of my favorite things in the world, and this happened when I went to see the newest Jackass. That's one of the last ones I can think of. But sitting in a movie theater and just laughing with people, it's such an amazing experience. And I don't know why we've collectively kind of decided that that's not something we should prioritize anymore. It's short-sighted and it's wrong. I think I say that as a creative. I say that as an audience member.
Yeah, I remember when the first Jackass came out. I saw that, and I got to be honest with you, I have never been inside a theater that was laughing from the very beginning all the way through. I mean, it was hard to hear the movie half the time because everybody was just laughing their ass off.
Yeah,
It
that's how
was absolutely
it's
delightful. It was so hilarious.
I don't know
Um,
why we decided that that's not something we should be chasing that, especially now with how dour it kind of feels like everything is. We should be chasing that everywhere we can get it, truthfully.
yeah, I agree. It's just a shame. I've been noticing that too. I actually talked to a fellow a stand-up comedian, and I asked him about that. I asked him if comedy is dying, will it come back? Will it make a comeback on the biggest on the not on the big screen, but how much a threat is it to stand-ups? Like we saw that one woman who was I guess she was lighting up Trump, and one of his Nazi supporters threw a full beer can at her during her
Yep.
set. And
And now
that's the kind of that's the kind of huh?
now it's going to be on Kimmel.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad she wasn't hurt. I mean, the
Okay,
guy threw a full can of beer at her,
of course.
and yeah. So, uh, what's the process? What's the difference? How hard? Because obviously, the one thing I'll say right now, I would definitely have to say your writing is a major strength. I mean, you could write as a playwright, as a stand-up comedian, and as a screenwriter.
I do
All
all.
three are all different, and all have their challenges. How do you keep that? How did you end up writing all three?
I think for me, what had really helped was that I didn't start writing until I think I wrote my first movie maybe 17. I think I wrote my first play at like 16 or something. But the thing was, I had had almost a decade of experience as an actor looking at scripts. And the two things I had going for me was that I knew how scripts were supposed to look and sound. So I had that going. And also, like, I'd always been a pretty good writer. I was always a good student in English. So combining kind of my natural strengths with information that I already had, it was a very natural thing for me to ease into. I've never struggled with it. I always feel at home when I'm writing things to make people laugh. It's a natural space for me. I put on a song, it's normally the same song, and I just put it on loop, and I just jump in.
I just got a question because I haven't been to the movies since It Part Two.
Oh
Are
wow.
movie tickets really $24?
Not where I am. They could be in certain parts of the country. They might be in like New York and California. I've heard 18 was the highest I've heard. Maybe it's gone up to 24. I don't know.
Wow.
It's not in Florida. I can
Wow.
say that it's not in Florida.
Net saying in South Carolina the tickets are $24. That's
Well,
crazy.
yeah. And when people see those kind of prices, you can blame them. You can't really blame them for being like, I want something really big. That's.
No, I get it. I get it. I think it's probably one of the reasons why some of these movies are getting a little bit longer in length too, because if you're paying that kind of money, you don't want to be hustled out of the theater and 88, 90 minutes. You want to sit there and for 2 hours, 2 hours plus. Um, uh, let's see. Our resident celebrity, Erie Frog. He's famous. He's frog famous. Um, Michael, love what you do and love the movies. Yeah, thanks so much, Frog. That uh, there you go. You've been sanctioned by the Frog. That's
Did
that's a,
Frog watch the film?
Frog watches a lot of things. He's all over the place. He's like one of the most well known YouTubers that we know. If and so
I just didn't know if he was referring to my film or something else. Like with the way that comment, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of folks. I have to say this: a lot of folks after we get done here, I'll put the link to the movie or the trailer or whatnot, and a lot of people actually will go and they'll watch the movie that we talk about.
Oh,
Like,
I hope people check it out. I really do.
yeah, yeah, and congratulations for that too. So, yeah, let's go back to the comedy thing because that really is. I guess I'm like a dog worrying a bone, but do you think that comedy is it cyclical? Is cyclical? Will it come back? Do you think, Michael,
I
or
think
are we seeing a dark age for comedy? And is comedy by shutting down comedy? Is that really in a way? Should we be alarmed about that as far as free speech goes? In your opinion?
I mean, yeah, to some extent, I would say. I mean, I don't want to be alarmist, but there are definitely things we should be concerned about. If you're somebody that loves movies, um, the best thing that I can tell you is go see the little indie thing you've never heard of the weekend that it opens. Wait to see the Marvel movie 2 or 3 weeks away because the Marvel movie isn't going anywhere. And that little indie thing, that's what needs your support. Um, it is, I think you're going to see a lot more comedies on streaming and they may live there permanently. I don't know. What I'm hoping is we will get to a point where collectively the price of tickets goes down with all this inflation and then audiences kind of relax. I think if those two things can happen in tandem, then we will get to a place where we'll start seeing more um, theatrically released films. The other thing too is that the studios have just got to figure out a way to cut down on these marketing costs, because the problem is if you make a movie for $100 million, the current logic is you're supposed to spend another 100 million marketing it, and that's insane. That's
I don't. Yeah, yeah. It is insane because where are you gonna throw that at? Where are you gonna throw that kind of money at? To
commercials, posters, print advertising, radio. That's and it's all insanely expensive. Um, ultimately, we've got to figure out a way to cut down on that as an industry, because P&A is killing a lot of things. And the other thing too is that to go back to what we were talking about before, a lot of these, and it's not just comedies, it's dramas, it's crime films. Basically, you either get the horror movie that's 5 million or the superhero movie that's 100, and all the stuff in the middle is getting squeezed out or it's getting pushed to streaming where you don't know about it. And the reason for that is that the DVD market died. That's what happened. They used to make those films with the revenue that they would get from selling DVDs. And now that that's gone, the studios don't have the funds anymore to make those mid range movies. So we've got to start going to see them in the theaters again so that people will actually want to watch, so that the studios will say, oh, people want to watch these mid range movies again. Because
yeah,
otherwise,
it's funny. I think streaming services. I think they lose. I think they lose. I mean, because not everybody's doing streaming, and there seems to be a bit of a backlash. There's some people that, yeah, they'll jump on a streaming service for a couple of months and they'll jump off of it, whatnot. But I just think that the more expensive it gets, before they know it, there's. I heard people say that Netflix is doing a lower tier. Now it's ad supported, and
yep,
it's like, well, in the old days we used to call that network TV.
yeah,
And it used to be for free. So why are you're paying $7 a month for something you used to have for nothing? You used to pay for, as far as that goes, I mean, and I think too, it's like for a movie like yours, I definitely think a movie like yours would benefit from a physical release.
I
It
would
would help it.
love that. I would love that. I would love
Mhm.
that. Ultimately, right now, it's not up to me, but I hope at some
Yeah,
point that changes. Because I would love nothing more than to be able to hold a copy of my own movie, um, but also, just to have people know about it. I think more people would know about it if we had been in Walmart and Target and some of those places.
I agree with that. Um, what's next for you? What's going on with 1202 Productions? Is
So
that just a one man? Is that a one man? Are you the whole production, or do you have people working with you? You have a team working with you?
I mean, I don't have people that work with me full time. I'm the only full time employee at 1202. It's my company. But I tend to work with the same people again. So I have a little repertory club of actors and stuff. That's like I was saying before. I tend to work with the same people. So I mean, this year was a really busy year for us. I started the year by putting out something called Short Jokes for Short Attention Spans, which was the world's first TikTok exclusive comedy special. So we did that. And then, as I was saying before, I had a play go up called Mary that I wrote, directed, produced, and co-starred in. We were an official selection of this year's Tampa Bay Theater Festival, and that went really well. We sold out our run. The audience loved it. And so now I've got a short film that we're going to be going into production for next month, and will hopefully be out for the end of the year. I don't want to say what that is because that's going to be a surprise for the people that have been following me for the last 15 years and have seen all the work that I've put out. It should be a treat. We're going to be revisiting something I did before. And then next year, my girlfriend and I are talking about getting a podcast off the ground. So that's something we're trying to explore. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I really would love to do this documentary. And I am hoping that my producer friend and I in LA can figure out a way to make that project happen because it would be a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a full plate, and we definitely gonna stay, definitely gonna be following you. I definitely think you're on the right track. I mean, based on what I've seen with the best laid plans, I definitely think you have a bright future in this business for sure.
Well,
I know
thank
you
you.
said you've been working for 10 years at it, or 20 years, right?
Well, I've been acting for 25, writing and directing for 15. So, but yeah, I mean, if people want to check us out, we're at 1202 Productions on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We've got a SoundCloud. So we're pretty much everywhere you want to be at this point. So we're all over the place, and I've got short films, I've got clips of my stand up. Um, so we've got the 1202 Productions website where you can buy like films of plays that I've done. You can buy my record. You can buy a copy of plans. We can link you to that. So, there's all this wonderful stuff that I've done. And, we're on all these platforms and we upload content fairly regularly. So, if you like what you've heard here, please feel free to, follow us on any of those.
And we'll do that. I want to thank you for your time, Michael, for coming out and hanging out with us.
For sure. It's
Um,
a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
I had a blast, and wow, I really enjoy talking to you. You have a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom, and thank you for sharing it with us. Um, the Best Laid Plans is a very good movie. Definitely recommend it. In fact, me and the Cheetah will probably end up reviewing it for. We have a little series that we do around our little community called Tubi Tuesdays. So we take a movie from Tubi and we watch and review it. And so I think I'll definitely be covering the best laid plans
For sure.
because I really enjoyed it. Um, I want to thank the chat for coming out and hanging out. Wait a minute, before I do that, I guess I should turn on and ask people if they want to ask some questions. So if you guys want to ask some questions for Michael, please do so.
Would love to answer them.
Answer if you have any questions. I guess the question I would ask you is, if you had a choice between a Whopper and a McHobbs, what would you take?
I'm gonna say the Whopper because I don't know what the McHobs is.
The McCob's is a McDonald's. It's a McDonald's cheeseburger, and then you slap on 2 chicken nuggets on it, and then you slap on a handful of fries, and then you mash it together.
Oh
That's
my!
the yeah. No, no on the McCob's.
I'm gonna have to say no on the McHobs.
Oh.
Nothing.
It actually looks really it actually looks very tasty. It actually looks very tasty if once you see it in action. Um, well, so far the Whopper is beating the McCobs, but it's pretty close race. So I'm pretty excited about that. But let's see if anybody has some questions.
Happy to
Uh,
answer them if they do.
Hobbs is asking you if you collect horror DVDs or physical media.
I do collect physical media. I mean, I have a handful of horror movies, like the ones that I like. That's a genre that I'm really picky about because a lot of people, a lot of first time directors, especially, uh, make cheap horror movies because they're easy to make and they think that they'll just automatically sell them and they forget to make them good along the way. So I do like horror movies, but I'm a little more stringent on them of the ones that I'm willing to watch, just because God, there's so many bad ones, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. I guess if you doubt that, you can check out some of the Wild Eye movies, some of the SRS movies. Wild Eye is like 50-50. They're a distributor.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm familiar.
yeah. Half their movies are pretty good. Half of them are like, yikes.
And when they're
And half,
bad, they're real bad.
yeah. When they're good, they're good. But when they're bad, they're really bad.
Yep.
Um, So yeah. What's your favorite genre to watch a movie in?
Um, I would say either comedy or crime movies. I really love a good mystery and or cop drama.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty partial to those as well.
Yeah, how about this? A24 or IOC Midnight?
Oh, I'm gonna say IFC Midnight just to be
You are
contrarian.
the fucking man. Yeah.
Everybody else is gonna say A24, and like, yeah, A24 is good and all, but like they've gone a little bit high on their own supply right now. Like
Hell yeah.
feeling themselves.
That's right. That's right. Take that. See, look at that. See, the man has taste. What can I say? Yeah, I'm a huge ISC Midnight guy.
Midnight Train was good. I liked
uh,
Midnight Train.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun. That's fun. No. Oh my gosh, I swear to God, Hobbs, I'm gonna buy you that movie like 20 times over and send. Oh no, no, no. Okay, how about The Asylum?
I'm gonna take a real hard pass on that one. That's all I'll say. Those
Sorry,
guys,
sorry, sorry. I was Echo. He's an Asylum fanatic. But I'm just like, oh God,
they're
please.
only 2 inches away from a lawsuit. I don't know how they haven't been shut down yet.
You know what? They come up with some of the weird. Like, yeah, I guess they just released one that a friend of ours knows about. Called the Headless Horseman, and it looks like it wants to be a Ghost Rider, and then it's supposed to be headless, yet it has a pumpkin head on it.
I mean,
It's just like I don't understand what the movie's supposed to be about.
so now they're ripping off multiple movies in one instead of
Yeah,
just one.
the Pie Wacket. Uh, See, Pie Wacket is a good acted film. It's a really good acted film, which is why it's really frustrating to watch because it's a well acted movie, and yet there's no Pie Wacket. MVD is sending you Amityville Thanksgiving. Oh, Lord, God. All right. I don't want my audience to crush you with bad movies. Um, he's got to wake up tomorrow morning, kids.
Yeah,
Listen, Mike, I want to thank you for coming out and hanging out with us. We're gonna do it
likewise,
again.
fun.
If you land that big documentary with that big name, we'll definitely have you come back and you can tell us all about it.
I
Um,
will. I'll be happy to pop back
uh,
on.
And to the chat, thank you guys so much. We will be back tomorrow with published poetess and rock and roll singer. I feel like I'm introducing a Buckaroo Banzai when I'm introducing Constance Steele. The only thing I don't think she does, and I'm not entirely sure she doesn't, is brain surgery. But I'm not so sure she doesn't. But I know she sings, she records, she acts, she models, and she's a published poet. She'll be here with us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. This Sunday, me and the Bat will be back for the Midnight Society. We'll be covering Terrifier on the 30th of October on the on the 30th of October on the Midnight IFC Midnight. See, I have a show. I have a show. We cover IFC Midnight shows,
Okay.
and we will be talking about Hunter x Hunter, and that will be on the Cadaver Club's channel. Michael, thank you again for coming out. Everybody else in the chat, I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for coming out and supporting the show. I appreciate it. Love you all.
It
And
was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
go get yourself some McHobbs, chat. All right, stay right where you're at, Michael. 1 second.